Hello, and welcome everyone to CFDA's Professional Development webinar in partnership with Raive. I'm Sasha Brown, Director of Professional Development, and it has been such a pleasure working with the team at Raive over the past several months on some exciting new opportunities to support our members as they navigate this new enterprise. Raive is a new foundation AI company behind IP safe image models. And we've been working with them on a beta test program where the Raive executive team will be partnering closely with a select few CFDA members who are actively working in the AI space and provide them with white glove service to create custom AI and explore building their brand's own foundation mode. More news about that exciting program will be shared with you in the coming months. And today we're joined by Sally Shin, who is the co-founder and chief operating officer at Raive. Sally will be taking us through an exciting presentation about AI, IP protection, how AI can enhance your creative work, and how brands of all sizes can benefit from AI. Sally will also be showing a demo of the Raive platform, and we'll take some time at the end of the hour to answer your questions. So please feel free to submit those via the Q&A tab throughout the hour, and we'll get to as many as we can. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to pass this over to Sally.
Thank you, Sasha, and thank you to the CFDA. We've had such a privilege of working with you and the team and some of our pilot partners as part of the members. So my name is Sally Shin, like Sasha mentioned. I'm one of the co-founders. We'll go through some of our other teams. I also have with us Marguerite, who is part of the partnerships team, and she's going to help us walk through some of the use cases with AI. And so we'll dive right into it, and we prepared a short deck. Oh, and as we go through that, actually, I think one thing that we're very curious about is how many people have used image tools, image AI tools or video tools, both in your work as well as just for fun. So I think there is a poll that Sasha just put up. If you guys could, answer that, that'll give us a good sense of, where to start and walk through some of this product. So Raive, we are a foundation AI company focusing on image and going into video, 3D and audio, and we'll walk through the different use cases of AI. So the presentation is divided into 5 parts. So first we'll go through who we are, and then we'll go through some of the terminology of what exactly generative AI is, how those models are built, and then how AI can be used in fashion and how designers can use Raive specifically. So we'll go through kind of our value prop of what makes us unique compared to some of the other image tools out there. And then we'll walk through some case studies as well. So some of that may be internal tools, whether it be for creative purposes, for marketing, but also really cool new ways of interacting with customers in an external fashion. So we'll go through some of those examples as well. And it looks like it's pretty split half and half on image tools, so that's very exciting. So just to walk you through the team, we have a world-class go-to-market team. So there's myself, just to give you a little background on me. I started a career in media, spent a little over a decade in different capacities working at Bloomberg and at CNBC. I had launched a show and oversaw a few different departments, then moved over to United Masters, which is a music tech platform where I was the chief strategy officer. And with that, we also owned a creative agency called Translation. So we did a lot of the work behind the NBA, Coinbase, Facebook, Apple Music. And so a lot of those IP work and how those creative tools are being used, we brought a lot of that learning into Raive. 2 additional advisors on the team, Fazil Merchant, who's on the board of Warner Discovery, who also was the CFO at DreamWorks, and Andrew Cheng, who was the general counsel at DreamWorks. So we really take IP work very seriously. And then I think the biggest differentiator on our team is really the technical talent. So Jonathan Raymond has been in AI for his entire career. He started his career at Baidu, working with Andrew Ng and Dario, who started Anthropic, and then was at OpenAI, where he was one of the leads of OpenAI 5, and that's the one that beat the game of Dota, and that's really what put OpenAI up on the map. And then he was put in charge of large language models at NVIDIA. So when you look at some of these AI companies, you have to look at how large scale models that the scientists can train. And Jonathan is one of very few people who can do that. Just briefly, other people on the team, Glenn Powell was in charge of DALL-E 2 at OpenAI. And so a lot of the learnings and frankly, the frustrations within OpenAI and DALL-E 2 he brought to Raive. And then we have a lot of the technical team. We are split between US and France, part for talent reasons, as well as technical reasons and strategic reasons. And we'll get into more of that later on. And so our team has a total of 11,000 citations and 10 patents, and we're continuing to grow the team. Okay. So what exactly is generative AI? And we try to boil this down to the simplest of terms, but really generative AI refers to a model that you take an aggregate of data and train that concept, and for that model to predict what comes next. And that can come in the form of text, image, video, music, all different sorts. So when you look at large language models and you are training a large corpus of text, and the machines will understand what could potentially come next and predict those outcomes. And so with image models, it's sort of the same concept. And so I think the two key things here that we'll refer back to is the input, how the model is trained, and then the output. I think also just some basic terminology to set the stage. The first is a prompt. So when you go on to a text prompt, or you go to ChatGPT, or you go to Midjourney, you go to some of the other platforms, you input a text, a query, and then it'll put that query into that model. So that's a prompt. And then the data set is the data that is training the models and the algorithms. So that data set can be large or small. The data set can be a text, it can be images, it can be different forms, but it's essentially what that the corpus of data that they're taking to learn for that model. I don't think I need to really go through what model is, but there are two different major types of models that we'll be touching. One of is diffusion models, which is our model that we use. So a lot of the image and video models are diffusion models. That's the Runway ML, Stability, OpenAI. And then LLMs are large language models. It's a type of AI algorithm that uses deep learning. And so majority of those text models are LLM. So the ChatGPT, Anthropic, Strahl, those are all LLMs. You'll hear SDXL used here and there. That's a powerful text-to-image tool that's built by Stability AI. So SD is the stability, and SDXL is the type of that model. And then two key terms for Raive specifically is Reality Zero and Raivium. Reality Zero is our model that we have labeled. And so same as what OpenAI is titled GPT-3, GPT-4, our model is called Reality. And then Raivium is our own data set, and that's going to be a key asset for us. And I'll explain that in a little bit. Just to give you a little bit of the landscape of where things are, I mentioned LLMs and I mentioned diffusion models. On the left is all the different LLM companies. We saw a huge rise in text models in the last year and change. And we're seeing a huge rise in diffusion models and image and video. You saw that with Sora coming out of OpenAI. You saw that with Runway ML and a lot of the tools that they used in films like A24. And then Stability AI with SDXL. And so we also sit in that category, and I'll explain what our differentiator is. So I have a quick little demo to show you guys, and this is always going to be fun because I think I have to exit out and then reshare. So this is Raive.
Let's start with a simple prompt. I want to put myself next to Beyonce in a futuristic world, say, wearing astronaut suits in the Sahara Desert. Let's try this in OpenAI's DALL-E. Well, that's not going to work. Now, let me try this in Midjourney. I don't exist in the Midjourney universe. But let me show you Raive. I can call the Beyonce AI and my own AI and generate By calling separate modular AIs, we can soon create with our favorite celebrities, styles, and even put ourselves in the creation to make it personal. We can even bring in different worlds to this. Take myself, Pablo, and Sally, and let's put us in a Star Wars universe. Calling our AIs. We are now Jedis ready to explore. We can also upload photos in Raive with it, or design it in different styles. Our new office in Paris needs some inspiration. Should we try Versailles? You know what? Philippe Stark seems more the vibe we want to go with. Let's try that. These are all great examples. We've built a back-end attribution system, so in the future, when our official AI is getting called from our AI library, IP holders will get royalties from that generation. They can keep track of their earnings and gain back control. Our foundation model is powered by a proprietary dataset called Raive, with state-of-the-art personalization and combinatorics AI algorithm model called Reality Zero. Raive's value proposition can be divided into 3 parts: IP protection, personalization, and minimizing legal risk. And soon, even a player built on top of Raive that allows for anyone to have the power to play with all of the world's content.
All right, so that is our model Reality Zero. Let me get back to our screen, and I'm told I might be in presenter mode. And well, I think I'm still going to be in presenter mode. Okay, well, we're going to be in presenter mode for the meeting. So in the last few years, we saw a huge improvement in different models and outputs. So you start with DALL-E, the first generation back in 2021, and you see the outputs of those images today, and it's vastly improved. And then with we're starting to see the next wave of video models. So you saw that with Sora, you saw that with Pika Labs, and that's going to bring a lot of level of creativity into the space. So you saw some of the examples of how we have used how our product is differentiated. I think the best way to show is how the present day players are approaching image models today. So currently there are 3 different attitudes when it comes to image models. So there's the Adobe model where it's trained just on their stock media. So you take Adobe's corpus of images and you train it off that model. So there's not a lot of knowledge into those models. And so here's an example we did with a prompt that is Pablo de Croo and Beyonce. Pablo is one of our co-founders who would be a layman, and then Beyonce, a celebrity. And so it's 2 examples of how these data sets would exist. And of course, if you put it in Adobe, it's not going to know who Beyonce is. It's not going to know who Pablo is. So the IP does not exist. It's more of an ignorant model, but it's legally more viable and safe. And then there's the OpenAI approach with DALL-E 2, DALL-E 3, where they're training on a data set that is not public. But then they censor a lot of those outputs. So when you put that same prompt into OpenAI's DALL-E, it's going to say it's against content policy. And so there's a lot of, some frustrations around, how that model is trained, and if there's some IP of your brand or your celebrity that is infringed, but you don't know, and you're going to get that censorship type of model. And then the third approach is the I don't care model, which is the Midjourney and ideogram, where, again, you put in the same prompt, and then it's going to output some form of Beyonce. The IP is not protected. Beyonce does not get royalties off of that image. And of course, I think the other important thing is Pablo doesn't exist in the model because he's not a famous person. So you don't know what Pablo looks like. Maybe you saw that image earlier, but that certainly is not what Pablo looks like. So the approach of these other models is this large data set system. And we believe that we're at the age where models are personalized. And so every brand, every company should have their own specific customized model. And we'll walk through some of the customization process. I think the thing I mentioned earlier about the two key things is the data and how the model is trained, and then on the output side. So with Midjourney and Ideogram, they're trained on the data set that's known as Lion, which is essentially what is scraped from the internet and trained on those corpus of images. And there's a lot of content that that's not licensed. And so, for example, Getty Images has sued these platforms because of the way that the data set is trained. And so our approach is we want to, and you saw that in the demo video, we're training on our own licensed data set because we want the outputs of those to be able to be commercialized and to take the risk off for you guys. And then the second is the IP on the output side. So what we have done, as you saw in the video, is we have smaller fine-tuned models of these cartridges of AI. So for the example that we have here, we would have two different types of AI cartridges, the cartridge of Pablo and the cartridge of Beyonce. And so when you prompt something on our platform, it's going to call those different models together. And because it's siloed into those models, it's not going to infringe with other parts of the model itself. So I think the best way to show is a live demo of our product. So I'll get to that next. And then, so now I'm going to navigate another. All right. So this is our live platform. This is our beta product. So there are different tabs here that you see today. So there are two different types of AIs we can create. What we've labeled here as portraits and as styles. And so portraits are appearances. So appearance of celebrities, appearance of products. So exact SKUs of clothing lines, etc. That would be all part of appearances. And then there's styles. So that's that could be anything from style of Wes Anderson, style of Andy Warhol, was a different photography style. Sam Yang is a cartoonist. So these are more of an aesthetic style. And the only differentiator in the back end is the way that it's trained, because when you are taking, remember, we are taking data sets to train these models and predict the outcomes based on the image that we use. And so understanding those concepts and training those are slightly different. The other thing that we're working on, which actually isn't in the video, that we're super excited about, is what we call live generation, and I'll show you that right here. So here's our preview of our text image prompt, and if you look, and I believe half the audience have used some form of image AI tools. What we want to do is narrow the gap between the concept you're thinking in your head and be able to take that snapshot and be able to create that. The current day systems is you put in a text prompt and then you wait about 5 to 10 seconds and you generate something, hoping that what you have described in text form is going to output what you want to actually build. What we are doing is what we call live generation. So you'll see a preview right here that once you start prompting different things, that it's going to generate the outputs in a format that you're looking for. So I can start by typing something as simple as a seaside landscape. And then you'll start to see the images generated in real time. And let's say I wanted to do it by some artists like Renee Magritte. And then you'll see that preview. That's just the base of the canvas. And then now let's say you want to place a product, place your own clothing line, your latest model, then you can start to actually draw right on the prompt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add like a hot air balloon. Let's see if it'll generate. Oh, doesn't want to do that. Let's see. Maybe I'll do a little lighthouse instead. So you see the lighthouse showing up on the right-hand side. And you can start to move it around. Let me see if I can put that hot air balloon again. So what's also exciting is once you have these placed, you can also start putting in your cartridges. So let's say I wanted to do, and I'll just generate that in the back, and let's start something else. And rather than seaside, I can do, German town. It's raining. Put some cinematic. So now it's also getting generated, and thing with generative AI is it's all net new content, meaning you're not pulling anything that already exists. This image has never been produced before. You'll see some technology that's called GANs, where you're overlaying different images. That is a different type of tool. It's an AI tool, but it's not generative AI, so there's differences there. So I can also start putting in, different concepts here. So let's say I want to do a red car. See if that'll work. Does not want to create the red car. Let's see. Oh, well, let me show you our last generation. So these are the input that we put in. We saw it's going to give you 4 different types of output, because I wanted to give 4 different types of images based on the prompt that I wanted to create. And so from here, I have the lighthouse. This is a seaside landscape. I'm by Marguerite, and I've put in a hot air balloon. I've put in, the lighthouse. And I can actually, if I really like this image, I can actually go take this image and start editing off of this image. So if I wanted to change the clouds, I wanted to put a sun in there, I can start to iterate off of that image the same way. So let me go back and see if I can read that. So I forgot what the prompt was. Did I say a Germantown, raining, cinematic? All right. Let's see if the car will generate. Oh. And the cool thing is, if let's say I'm Mercedes and I want to, rather than put a red car, I put Mercedes car, I can start to do that. So here it is. You see the red car there, and I can actually, potentially, whatever the brand is, whatever the example I want to use, whatever the product, I can, rather than saying red car, I can start to call those cartridges and place them anywhere. And then I can start to move these around, and it'll show up in different formats. So, and what I do is I will click generate, and then I go back to my profile, and it'll generate 4 different types of images based on the prompt that I was looking for. So again, the goal is to really narrow the thought process between what you're thinking and what you actually want to generate. And so we think of it less as an entertainment tool, which is in some cases of some of the other platforms, but really it's a tool, it's a utility tool that really helps enhance some of your workload. So we'll get back to some of the demos in a little bit, and let me just wrap up the keynote, which again, I apologize that it's going to be in presenter mode. Okay, so our first product is it's called Raive Enterprise. It is your own customized text to image model. And so here's an example that we used with the NBA. And so these cartridges that are custom just specifically for that platform would be that we're building cartridges for the different players, for stadiums, for their sponsors. If you are a fashion brand and you have an ambassador that you want to create their cartridge, you want to create the latest line of your clothing line, you can start to build those SKUs. And maybe there's a concept based on that season, and you can create that as a stylistic AI as well. Of course, you can also start going into the archival content. And so if you wanted to, train an entire corpus of your image models with, the 70s archives, the 80s archives, then you can start to aggregate that. And in the back end, what we're doing is annotating those images and creating that specific custom AI model for that specific brand. And so you can start to play around with it. I think there are two key things that are differentiated here. One is, as I mentioned, the way that we're training our data set with licensed content only is really critical when it comes to wanting to use these image models for commercial reasons, whether it be external facing commercials, marketing assets. And the way that we're training it is designed so that it's safe for commercial use. And then the second part of it is the IP protection piece. So when you send over your content for us to train on these different AI cartridges, it gets siloed within your Raive enterprise platform and it doesn't go elsewhere. And that's been a key differentiator for a lot of these high value IP where they want to have their own custom image models today, but they don't want that to be mixed in with some of the other models or usages. So if you are Disney and you send your entire content for us to train, you don't want Mickey Mouse to show up somewhere else because it's a siloed product. So I think those are some of the key things that especially when it comes to IP related, that people really care about, that we've been focusing on. With that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Marguerite.
Hi, everyone. So here is a list of use cases already in practice in the fashion industry. And as you can see, companies and designers have started using AI in many different ways, most of which are highly tailored services and efficient content creation for internal or external use. And now I'm going to go through some illustrated examples in more details. So the first one is predicting and designing the next trend. As you know, AI can analyze data much faster than was ever possible before. So the trend prediction is easier and more accurate. Generative AI enables you to test designs, fabrics, and color combinations within a few seconds, and also convert sketches, mood boards into high fidelity designs. The second one is virtual try-ons. So AI also allows you and your customers to try clothes virtually. So for example, this is Sally wearing a Burberry trench coat in the streets of New York. Also, styling services are becoming less time-consuming and cheaper thanks to AI, as it can create multiple styling combinations that are personalized to every single customer based on their own preferences. And in addition, generative AI accelerates content development by generating ultra-realistic visual campaigns for advertisements, and it can also personalize customer experience online by generating ads adjusted to their unique tastes. And also remember that this is not all, and that the possibilities of AI and fashion are endless.
All right. And just so you know, all the images on those platforms were generated using Raive. And like Marguerite said, there's so many different ways to use AI for your creative processes. I think I mentioned it at the top, but we're the technology that it enables creativity, and you guys are the creatives. So we certainly aren't going to tell you how to use these tools. So we certainly will give you the tools to empower you for that creativity. Whether it be those internal tools and creative processes. A lot of people that we have talked to within the industry have also focused on things that are just concepting before they go directly to their sketches. And then on the marketing front, we'll walk you through some of the examples outside of fashion as well. But when it comes to massive amounts of asset creation, whether it be for marketing, for internal generative AI tools have been just a game changer for a lot of the industry folks from the feedback we've gotten. And so, and then I think this is a good segue into this slide, is that we can start to power the backend for different experiences. So I mentioned our first product that we have is the Raive Enterprise, where we build your own enterprise tools for you. So this is for your teams to be able to have access to your image platforms that's legally safe and also has your assets that exist in the universe, unlike some of the other platforms where it's a starting point, but it's not customized for you. The beauty of the AI cartridges that we walk through is that with the cartridges, once they are trained, those mini models that are trained, that can start to be distributed to different channels. So our second product, which we're also working in tandem, is called Powered by Raive. And so that is powering the backend either through API access or to more direct, creating a third-party experiences for you. So whether that is you are a brand and you want to have your customers go to your website and do virtual try-ons, or let's say you want to have a marketing concept where you are, it's a specific season that has a theme and you want to use those style cartridges, and you can take a photo and have your customers or your fans, your followers use that AI cartridge to generate the world of that fashion line. And so there are endless ways once we give that API access, and you guys can start building on top of that. And of course, there's a consumer player that we're looking to launch, and this is later in the year, where people can start to play with different AIs. And I think the key again is the infrastructure we've built and enables people to control how their IP is being used. So if you're a brand and you don't want anybody else to use it but for internal purposes, then you can make your AIs private, and so nobody has access to it. Or if you want to have it so that you're the only AI that exists in the universe externally and nobody else, you can also create that control in the backend. So the beauty of this is that with this cartridges, you can control how you want your specific AI models to be used. And then just to wrap it up, and this is just more kind of stats from McKinsey, is generative AI could add 150 to nearly 300 billion to fashion industry's operating profits. I think a lot of that really is in the efficiency of the tools. And I think the key, the interesting thing is around customization that adds incremental 40% revenue and top line for brands, and the customization to the level of, hey, I am Sally and I love X brand. And if I get a commercial targeted to me with me in the image with your latest line, that's something that's happening today. And that layer of customization really, is a different way to connect with customers. Just to wrap it up of where we are, we have raised a little over 4.5 over the summer. Like I mentioned, we have both US and a French arm, and so both on the investors on the French and US side. And before we get to maybe some of that Q&A as well, I wanted to give you some live examples of how our cartridge model works. And so the first is the Guerlain B bottle, which actually the LVMH team had generated a campaign on. And so without a cartridge, if you put it in SDXL, remember SDXL is the stable diffusion, then you're not going to get that bottle. In fact, that it's just kind of a perfume bottle that doesn't look much like anything. And then being able to create and generate that AI cartridge of that perfume bottle, you're going to get the exact specs of what you're looking for. Same goes for, this is an example we did with J'adore by Dior, the perfume. If you put it in SDXL and then you put it in our Reality Zero, where we created that exact cartridge. And so we can customize those in different ways. This is just an example of Steph Curry from the Warriors. I'm coming from San Francisco. And so you see the quality difference between the two. Here's one of LeBron James. Here's one of different hoodies, different boots. Gatorade bottle. So, you know, a lot of the advertising agencies have been utilizing and figuring out ways to use our product for their commercials. And then I think this is a really interesting one. So the Olympic mascot, so Paris Olympics is coming up in the summer. I mentioned to you of your image models are, your data is either in or it's out. And unfortunately, when the Midjourney or Stability or models were trained, the actual mascot didn't exist in the model. So here's a prompt that we used of, and actually I'm going to show you a different. So if you, this is a prompt that we used. It's a movie still of the Olympic game mascot, yada, 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 in front of the Eiffel Tower. If you put it in GPT-4, which is OpenAI's product, you're not going to get that mascot. Midjourney, you're not going to get the mascot. And then we created an AI cartridge of that specific mascot there. And so now you can have different concepts that exist. So if you are, again, a brand that's looking for new different concepts that doesn't exist today because you're creating as the next season's concept, the cartridge model allows you to have those concepts exist in the model. So the way we think about it is a brick by brick approach of customizing different layers as net new information comes in. Here's just another example of, like I said, Stable Diffusion's SDXL and how the Raive cartridges work. And then we have a layer of controllability on different ways to use the cartridges. So that concludes our presentation, and I will pass it off to Sasha.
That was fantastic. So we have some great questions coming in, but please feel free to continue to submit. The first one I'll get to for Sally, great idea to silo personalized data away from the general training data to protect IP. Can you share at a high level how you train the general model data?
So, actually, I will give it to you more graphically because I think that'll help understand. So I go back to the approach of the brick by brick. And what I mean by that is, let me just pull this up. There are two different ways that we architect our model. And now we're going to get slightly technical, but that is. Okay. So this is how our models are trained and architected. So the blue is what we call the base model, the foundation of what constitutes large breadth of generic information. So there's no attributable IP, and it's fully trained on our own data set. And so with reality 0, 0.5, we're going to have licensed data set that allows for the commercialization. And then separately, the AI cartridges is what makes things more customized. So here's an example that we have with Pablo Decrue and Janelle Monáe in the style of Sam Yang. And those are three different AI cartridges that work and interact. And the composability of those is proprietary for us. On the base model itself, when I say it is generic knowledge, that's understanding the concept of a house, concept of a tree, concept of more simplistic stock media type of content, more cinematic content. And then when it comes to, hey, I want the house to be in the style of Frank Gehry, then that becomes that you add that IP knowledge into the model. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Sally. The next question, is there a limit to unique outputs generated using the same terms or inputs to prevent duplication other users might be generating? Or would it require more specific inputs to generate specific outputs? So, for example, if multiple people are using New York City, skyline, sunset, are multiple users getting the same initial results?
No, so the beauty of generative AI is that everything is net new. So people are not going to get what you output is not going to be same for anybody else. Of course, when you start to add more details to the prompts, you're going to get more closer to what you're looking for. So having just say, hey, New York City skyline is going to have generic things at different daytimes, different parts of the city versus, if you add in time of day, you add in what part of the town, specific buildings. And in fact, you can even have, let's say an Empire State Building as part of the skyline and add those cartridges. That gives a lot more detailed outputs.
Are you working with any clothing companies to understand the workflow and opportunities for potential implementation?
Yeah, so we're piloting with a few designers and brands today, as well as some non-fashion but design-focused partners as well. And we are in the early stages of on the product side. So we're understanding what the customer needs are. I think the biggest thing is around the editing capabilities. So giving that control of how do you create the assets that exist in 3D, and how can we just change backgrounds, change the lighting, change the concepts. So working through with those partners on how to best do that. In terms of use cases, what people are looking for is pretty varied based on what they want. And so certain ones, we went to them thinking that they wanted something more of an external facing product for their customers. And in fact, they had an inherent need for something that's more of an internal tool that was closing the gap on the design side. One of which was, look, we want to narrow the gap that we spend time on Photoshop, and this eliminates a lot of the time. And ultimately, our goal is to take away that time from other editing platforms so that you have a one-stop shop. And so we're continuing to converse with a lot of the partners on how to make those tools as efficient and to prioritize the different editing tools that would be most useful for the brands.
Great. The next question, how does your API account for intrinsic bias?
Yeah, I think I would love a little bit more elaboration on that question. I think in terms of just approach of maybe controllability on output, this question comes out quite a bit about how do you control for nudity or violence or not suitable for work content. And actually, it's not a binary or more clear answer than, oh, we're not going to have any of those content, because especially as you guys all know, when we work with more creatives and let's say studios and others, they're looking for things that might be a little bit more creatively, more on the riskier side. So if you are a film studio working on a violent film and you want to be able to generate some of those content in any of the image or video tools, you're going to want some form of violence. I think with fashion or with films and studios and entertainment, that goes as well that is as well the same. And then just in terms of, I don't know if it's maybe kind of a response to what happened to maybe Gemini's reactions. So one of the key things that differentiates our products is the annotation piece. So when there's a step-by-step of how the models are trained, you have the data set, and then you annotate the data, and then you train on that data based on the annotation, and then you get the output. The annotation process is actually a lot more important than people think. And annotation means anything from detailing the images that you are training. So if you get some raw image data and then you put it in, the model needs to understand what those images are. So the more detailed the image is of, hey, this is a X green tree and whatever car, and being more detailed is more key. And as part of that process, one of the things that we beta test and pretty extensively is on making sure that those outputs are accurate.
Sally, there are a few questions that are more of, how do we get a hold of you? How do we work with you? What's it like working with Raive? And so following this webinar, we'll send you information. We're going to give you Sally's direct email, a recording of this conversation, which you can share with your teams. and more information about the Raive platform. So we encourage you to pursue those conversations directly with Sally, and I'm sure she'll be thrilled to answer your questions. But that looks like it's all for the Q&A right now. And I just want to thank you so much, Sally and Marguerite, for joining us today and supporting our community through this conversation. And
Yeah, no, thank you, Sasha. And for us too, we've been working together for the last few months on the background, working with a lot of the members on different ways. And for us, we're in listening mode of how do we actually help fuel the creativity. And so we want to be the tools that help you enable that. And so we'd love to talk to more people. I think I saw a question around access to the platform with the people that have attended. We are happy to jump the queue on some of the access and be able to play around with these tools. If you're interested in building your custom cartridges, and it can be anything from one to building your own full foundation model, we'd be happy to discuss that. So I know Sasha will give out my email and my contact, and I just look forward to just continuing the conversation and meeting a lot of you, and hopefully we can help become that tool for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sally, and thank you everyone for joining us today, and stay tuned for more information.
Thank you, Sasha. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.